Boomer podcast. We're also doing a YouTube live. We'll see how this shakes out. We've done some TikTok lives. Those are great fun because I get to pull people in and ask a bunch of questions and get comments and those sorts of things. Now, YouTube's, it's a little different. We try, I think we can bring some people in. I just have not figured that out as yet. So we're going to be taking a lot of questions and comments from people who come up in the comments. And it's always a good time. We usually get a pretty good turnout, and we will wait and see as those people start coming into the room. I just want to mention something. I did a recent, not recent, like 20 minutes ago, I did a live on Substack. Now, I didn't know much about Substack. I had a lot of people coming in and saying, wow, you should be on Substack. And every time I looked at it, I thought, well, that's a little too highbrow for me. That's more people who write things. And I can write things, but as you probably know by now, I'm lazy. I'd rather just say it as opposed to write it. And so when I found out that I could do my TikToks and everything else on Substack, I thought, well, that's cool. And then I saw that I could do a live too. So I threw caution to the wind, did a live on Substack, and went pretty well. And if you want to see it, it'll be up on YouTube later. It'll be up on Spotify, the audio version as well. So we'll see what's going on. RC says, hello, Boomer, watching from Japan. Hey, thank you from overseas. I hope things are going better in Japan than we got here. Jazz Maniac says, hey, Mike, Substack was good. Well, thank you, Charles. It's kind of like what we do here, but I'd never done it before, so I'm glad we had a shot. Debbie, hi from Illinois. RC service members here worried about the Hegseth confirmation. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. You know, if you look past the excessive drinking, if you look past the being a sexual predator, if you look past all that stuff, it all comes down to here's a guy that's just not qualified to run one of the biggest organizations in the country. 3 million people in the Defense Department and a budget of nearly $1 trillion. And they've got a guy who's run some small veteran organizations and run them into the ground. Yeah, it doesn't bode well. Here's the one good thing I can tell you, though. Donald Trump runs through defense secretaries. I think in his first term, he had 4 or 5 defense secretaries in 4 years. So the likelihood that Hegseth will be around a while, not likely. In fact, he will no doubt do something stupid. He's a lot like Donald Trump in the sense that you can almost guarantee that he will fuck up. He'll fuck up one way or another. And when he does, Donald Trump will blame him and kick his ass out the door. And then it'll be some other goofball in there. Analytical Iowan is out there with us. You know him from the TikTok lives. You know him from the Rational Boomer podcast. Guy knows his shit. If you're not following Analytical Iowan, you should be. Hey, Lopez. Hi, Boomer from Kansas City. Hey, love your town. Hello from Portland, Oregon. Cat Productions. Howdy, Mike. Hey, how you doing? Hi from Texas. Hi from Cali. I hope things are settling down there. I don't know if you're in the Los Angeles area. I was out there a short time ago, and it was very nice. And then shortly after that, then we had the fires, and then all things broke loose. It was kind of interesting, with the fires there, and now Donald Trump's the president. He was talking a lot of shit about Gavin Newsom, or as he said, Gavin Newscum, because he's so clever. And he was talking tough about Gavin Newsom. So Gavin says, well, why don't you come out here and take a look at it? Donald Trump's not good at confronting people he's talking shit about. He'll do it behind your back or from a distance like bullies tend to do. But Newsom basically lured him in. Donald Trump gets off the plane, and guess who's standing there? Gavin Newsom, looking taller, younger, better looking, and in more control than Donald Trump. And Donald Trump just shrunk like a violet. He was kind of cowering as he came out. If there was a contest to determine who was the alpha male in that situation, well, it wasn't Donald Trump. It was certainly Gavin Newsom. And Gavin knows how to play Donald Trump. He knows he's a bully. So get up in his face and say, what up, bitch? Todd's Pod Hi from Quebec, Canada. Like your content. Thank you, Todd. I like your country. A little better than my country at this point, too. Um, Candace, how old are you? Well, I'm 64. I'm 64 years old. I'll be 65 in April. Yep, I'm that motherfucking old. Vance Davis is saying hi from the Baltic. Hey, North Korea? I got somebody from North Korea watching this shit. Can you watch this stuff with Kim Jong Un leading your country? Are you messing with me here? South Dakota. Oh, Vance Davis now saying South Dakota. You sounds like you're confused as to where you're from. Oh, I see what. Okay, you're being sarcastic. North Korea. Now you say you're from South Dakota, and the reason you're saying that is because your governor, former governor, soon to be, Kristi Noem, is a goofball, Trump-la-fuck sycophant who occasionally likes to shoot puppies in a sand pit, a gravel pit. Yeah, she was named Secretary of Homeland Security. Yeah, she's qualified for that, isn't she? She's going to oversee um, those things coming across the border, whether they be products or people. She's going to be overseeing FEMA, which I find interesting since Donald Trump told people in North Carolina that he's thinking of shutting down FEMA, and she oversees the Secret Service. So that's going to be her job. The only good news about that is that the South Dakotans will be relieved. Moon says, do you believe in religion? I believe in God. I believe in a greater power. I don't believe in organized religion. As far as I'm concerned, there are some good organized religions. If it makes you feel better and if it fills your heart, by all means do it. I don't like things run by humans because they tend to get tainted. They tend to get corrupt. Nice thing about being a Christian or somebody who believes in God, you don't need a middleman to get to them. And I kind of look at churches as middlemen, and not all of them are respectable. Some are. Don't get mad at me. My church is good. Okay, that's fine. I'm just not in that spot right now. I'm comfortable with my relationship with the higher power the way I have it. Mrs. N. Adams, yay, made it to alive again. Michigan in the house. Way to go, Michigan. Hello from Washington State. Okay, here's a guy that I think I'm going to get rid of. And, we've got TJ the plumber out there. He's a moderator, and Analytical Iowa, they are moderators. And what they are here for is to try to kick out the Trump-la-fucks, because they like to come in here. And for the life of me, I don't get it. I don't get it at all because they won. They should be worrying about making America great again or dealing with some of the bullshit that Donald Trump is putting out there. Still, they want to come here. They want to argue with me. Argue about what? You won. Take that and run with it. But see, these people don't know how to do anything else but argue and fight. They want to come back at you and prove to you that you're wrong as to what you think about Donald Trump. Well, I'm sorry, you can't do that. You can't change my mind. And it's no good for you to come here. You can try it, you can do it, but we're still going to talk our shit. And that's our right. I don't know if you remember the Constitution or not, but that First Amendment says I have the right to say the things I believe, even if it pisses you off, because you motherfuckers do that all the time. You say some of the most egregious shit. You lie, you cheat, you steal, and now you're trying to destroy the country. So damn us for getting angry about it. Will says hi from Dallas. Hey, Will. Leslie says Governor Newsom for the win. Yes. And I would think a Governor Newsom is probably the front runner for the candidate for the Democratic Party for president in 2028. This is really early yet. Things can change. But Gavin has pretty much everything he needs. He's tall, he's good looking, he's articulate, he's smart, he's tough. He's running like the 9th largest economy in the world in California. He's got some experience. Eileen says, Minnesota here. Well, Eileen, Minnesota here too. I'm in Minnesota. Previously, I was coming from Savannah. We have a place down there in Savannah, Georgia. It was hilarious. They get 2-3 inches of snow down in Savannah, Georgia. The whole fucking place shuts down. They don't know what to do with it. And they said, "What do you think?" I said, "This looks like any day January in Minnesota. We wouldn't even shovel the walk yet with 2 inches of snow." But they're not used to dealing with it. It jammed up all kinds of streets and made things very difficult. I had to leave a day early. Well, actually, I left a day. I left out of the airport a day late, but I left the day I was normally going to get, because I had to go down to Orlando to fly out. And instead, we thought we'd go partway down, stay overnight, take it easy. We're old. I mean, we can't really be going out there getting crazy anymore. 64 years old, for God's sake, and so is my wife. Mackley Street says, "Hi from Sydney. Way to go, Australia." Michigan, it's not the years, it's the mileage. Yeah, it is not the years, it is the mileage. You know, I don't think any differently than I did when I was 30. I don't really feel that much different. I'm a little slower, maybe a little creakier getting up, but for the most part, I feel good, and my mind is still that of what it was when I was 30 years old. Hopefully, I'm a little smarter at this point. But if it were my mom, she's the one that first told me the phrase, "You look like you've been ridden hard and put away wet." And I guess that could be said for me too at some point. Christy Nome, this comes from TJ the Plumber. She was named Dog Murderer of the Year. And she was proud of that shit. She was proud of that shit. All Trump noms are the very bottom of the barrel. I think that goes without saying. I was out at a restaurant today, and we met up with some people, and there was another gentleman there known to be a Trumplafuck, and they kept us separated. And I didn't really talk to him about politics, which is just fine. There's no reason to do it in that situation. But he looked to be the epitome of a Trumplafuck. Big and dumb. That's how they all look, apparently. Let's see what else we got here. Thank you, Boomer. Love your show. British Columbia, Canada. You have a beautiful area there. Analytical Iowan says, "Did you see Grassley is pissed about Trump's firing of 7 inspectors general?" I did see that, Eric, and that's interesting. You're hard-pressed to get a Republican to push back against Donald Trump. But that was really out of nowhere. First I heard it was 12, now it's 17, but he fired 17 inspectors general. And a bunch of those he appointed in his first term, which is weird. I don't understand the reasoning for it. I think he fired the inspector general that oversees the Defense Department and some others. I don't know, maybe he thinks he's pulling something off. But as Grassley pointed out, and other people have pointed out, the law is that you have to give 30 days notice to do that. So Donald Trump broke the law. And everybody's going, "Oh my, we got him now. He broke the law." My answer to that is, so what? Who's going to do anything about it? I mean, that's been the biggest problem. There's no question Donald Trump's broke laws, that he's corrupt. He stepped over norms. There should be accountability for these things, but what we found with Donald Trump is there is no accountability. So he did break a law by firing these people instantaneously without notice. My question is, who is going to do something about it? Coconut says she's from Minnesota, or he's from Minnesota. What else? Damn, TJ, you're dumping a lot of Trumplafucks out of here. I would have never thought it would have been this bad. Thoughts on MLK, RFK, and JFK files being released? You know, I'm interested to know. JFK, the earliest of those assassinations, came in 1963. I was 3 years old at the time, and I don't remember much of it. The only thing I remember is watching the funeral, and why I remember this, I don't know. But I thought it was weird when I saw the horse without a rider, and the boots pointing the opposite way. For whatever reason, that stuck with me for the last, 62 years. So what do I think about them releasing it? I still think we're not going to find out anything that they don't want us to know. Like, for example, can you imagine if the government did have something to do with any of those assassinations? Do you think they documented it for posterity? It depends on what it says in those documents. There may be some new things that we'll find out, but I'll just wait and see. The thing I found the most interesting, however, was that Donald Trump was asked about all three of these. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm releasing them. I'm a big shot. I'm a cool guy." He thinks this will get people in this country to warm up to him because they're so excited about this. He was also asked about the Epstein files. He goes, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to release that." Oh, I wonder why, Donnie. I wonder why your name's going to be all over that. Medina Jaden says, "Hey, Boomer and chat." Hey, Medina. Do you think the orange man will get a third term? Absolutely not. Eric and I have talked about this before. In order for Donald Trump to get a third term, he's going to have to change the Constitution. And this is what I've told people all the time too, is look, everybody's worried about Donald Trump doing all these things he's claiming. Just because he says it doesn't mean he's going to be able to get it done. He's got some hurdles. He's got lawsuits. He's got Congress. He's got the Constitution. He doesn't have enough power to change things. Like, for example, the birthright citizenship. Donald Trump wants to change that up. He wants to take that away. Unfortunately, in order to do that, you have to change the 14th Amendment. It was sent to court. The judge said it was sent to an appeal, and the judge said this is mind-boggling. This is blatantly unconstitutional. Fuck you, take it back. And then he'll appeal it to another court, and they'll do the same thing. Donald Trump doesn't have a great record with appeals, so I'm not too worried about that. No, he's not going to get a third term. Analytical Iowan, they don't have the votes for a constitutional amendment to give Trump a third term. Yeah, they need a 2/3 vote in order to do that in the House and the Senate, and those votes just don't exist. So no, he's not going to do that. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask Eric or TJ. There's some smart motherfuckers too. A lot of cases they know more than I do. Most cases. Michelle Nowak says, "My daughter got stuck in Savannah an extra day Thursday too." Well, that was us. We have a place in South Savannah, and we could drive around fine. I mean, we're from Minnesota, so when we saw 2 inches of snow, we thought, what's the big deal? They don't really have plows down there. And they don't plow. They just wait till it melts from the sun. And it did start to melt right away, but it wasn't that warm. So by the time we left, there was still a fair amount of snow for Savannah anyway. Todd's Pod said, Minnesota is as tough as nails like Canada. Well, I would have to agree with you based on my lifetime with winters, but the last few winters have been pretty light by comparison. Belady says, Newsom embarrassed Trump. Yeah, all Newsom had to do to embarrass Trump was show up. Donald Trump wasn't expecting Gavin Newsom to be waiting for him, and Gavin knew that. He stood over, towered over Donald Trump, and Donald Trump just cowered like a little bitch, like he does. So tell us about yourself. Well, I don't know that that's very interesting. 64 years, I'll tell you quickly, okay? 64 years old, born and raised in South Minneapolis, Minnesota. Went to high school in South Minneapolis, went to college for about a year at the University of Minnesota. I majored in drinking and partying, and by the end of the first year, both the college and I agreed that I learned as much as I could possibly learn. I tested out, and we decided to part ways. So just 1 year of college. I worked in radio for many years. I had my own recording studio. I worked in the music business. I worked in a lot of things, a lot of it having to do with radio. That's why this is easy enough to do. I got married when I was 23 in 1983, had my first son in 87, my second son in 94. They're full-grown adults. My oldest son is married, has a daughter, cutest little girl you ever fucking saw. And we've got a grandson coming in May. And every day as a retired guy, I come on, I do some TikToks, I put them on YouTube, and I do a podcast every day, the Rational Boomer podcast. We're on every day. If you haven't checked out the Rational Boomer podcast, I will tell you this live will be a Rational Boomer podcast for tomorrow. But we're here every day. We have guests on, we read emails, we do all kinds of stuff. We talk about the happenings of today. You can get the podcast on YouTube in video form, or you can get it on Spotify in the audio form. Ironically, the Trump nominations are DEI. Yeah, they really are kind of DEI. A lot of people are under the impression that DEI is just a matter, just something that helps people of color, but it's also for women and other groups as well. But Donald Trump is too dumb to understand that. Robert Robinson says, hello from Vancouver Island, Canada. I lived in Minnesota as a kid to 75 in Cottage Grove and had great friends and good times. Know Cottage Grove well. In fact, I lived in South Minneapolis, and in Cottage Grove, I didn't know how to roller skate, but I could talk. So I talked my way into a job as a DJ at Cheapskate Roller Rink. I think it was in Cottage Grove. That was an interesting time. Met a lot of great people down there. JV says, I'm shocked at Grassley. Wow, yeah, I'm shocked too. He seemed to be a sycophant. The fact that he stepped up and spoke out against Donald Trump is interesting. But as I've told you before, here's what you have to understand about the Republicans. They were in Donald Trump's pocket up to the election because they needed him to win in the election. Once he won the election, that's all he really could bring to them. His value to the Republicans is quite a bit diminished. He becomes more of a liability now because of the crazy shit he does and the embarrassing things he does. So I think you're going to see more Republicans pushing back against him. I think you'll definitely see it in the votes for these crazy bills that he's putting up, like this one big, beautiful bill that he's putting up. There's no way that's going to pass. Democrats certainly aren't going to vote for it. And there's going to be a vast amount of Republicans that won't vote for it either. But even if it passes the House and goes on to the Senate, remember, we've got that horrible thing we all hated, the filibuster. Well, now it's our turn to use the filibuster. And if they use the filibuster on any of these bills, then they need 60 votes. Now, with this budget thing, they may only need a simple majority, but I don't even think they will get that. Okay, Eileen says, saw a Trump-la-fuck at Costco today. Easy to spot. Big, stupid hat. Big, stupid. And looked like he hadn't showered in a while. I think I saw him too, or somebody like him. W. Wilson says, hold Republicans accountable, give Democrats a free pass. Well, that's hardly fair. The Democrats don't do that, though. You know, all these criminals with the Republican Party, they seem to get dismissed. Okay, yeah, they did that, but it was no big deal. But when a Democrat does it, Robert Menendez, I think he's a rep. He's the one that got cut for bribes and those sorts of things. He may be going to jail for 15 years, and he's a Democrat. And you know what the Democrats say? Good. Send that motherfucker to jail. Just a different mindset between Republicans and Democrats. Vanessa Seymour says, if you think Donald Trump is the problem, you're sadly mistaken, and you're quickly blocked, so fuck you. Trump can't and will not be allowed to run for president again. Absolutely. Jaja says, hey, Mike. Hey, Jaja, how you doing? Damn it, Eric, you ruined my joke with Thanos. Alberta Gold says, howdy, Boomer, good to see you. Good to see you too, Alberta. Michael Zena, Z-Man is here. Z-Man's an interesting character. He often writes emails to the show, the Rational Boomer podcast show. And sometimes we don't always agree on anything. And I'll talk some shit about Mike or Z-Man. And some people say, you're too rough on him. You're too rough on him. I go, listen, you get a couple old men our age, we give each other shit on the regular. That's how we grew up. You didn't know you liked somebody unless you talk shit about him. And Mike gets that. I get that because he can talk shit about me too. That's just the way we are. Analytical Iowan says the idea of a third term is just red meat for the base so they don't talk about Trump fucking the economy. You're absolutely right. I've said that before about Donald Trump. He is little more than a show pony. He's very performative. He says the things he says, and he doesn't even care if they ever come to fruition. He just looks good by playing the tough guy. Now, you and I, and normal folks of average or above intelligence, knows what's going on, but those dumb fucks that follow Donald Trump think he's a fucking genius. And that's all he needs, to make those guys believe that he's the tough guy doing all the important shit. Fred Gilbert says, if he says he'll release the files in 2 weeks, we'll know they'll never be released. Yeah. Donald Trump was going to have a big, beautiful healthcare plan in 2 weeks. He was going to have an infrastructure plan in 2 weeks. And if you remember, he didn't have either one of those. Frank Campolino says, is Chet Culver a good choice for president in 2028 and a good candidate for the Senate in Iowa? I don't know. I don't know anything about Chet Culver. I have a feeling Analytical Iowan, who is from Iowa, probably have better insight on that. So, Eric, if you got something for him, let him know, and I'll repeat it here so he can hear it. Did you see the King of Denmark troll Trump by changing the coat of arms to represent Greenland? I did. And it wasn't even that. You know, the interesting thing, last week something happened that in most cases, in normal situations, normal times, would have been called an international incident. But when Donald Trump is involved, that's just yesterday. Every day is an international incident where he's pissing off or embarrassing somebody, especially since becoming president this time around. But apparently there was a phone conversation between Donald Trump and the Premier of Denmark, the Danish Premier. And Donald Trump started talking about taking over Greenland and how great it would be. And, you know, he's a master negotiator. And the Premier said, no, we're not doing that. That makes no sense. We've had control of Greenland for 800 years, nothing in it for us. Nah, just forget about it. And this pissed off Donald Trump because Donald Trump is little more than a spoiled fucking child. That's who he is. When somebody tells him no, he gets mad. And that's what happened in this phone call. Apparently, it got very heated on the phone call. Donald Trump was threatening all kinds of things like tariffs, for example. Well, the problem with imposing tariffs on Denmark, that would mean he'd have to impose tariffs on all of the EU, the European Union. And that's just not conducive to the economy. It's going to fuck up the economy immensely. And then he kind of threatened, because he's all about being the bully, well, we could do it militarily if we had to. Now, you got a problem there, too, because you see Denmark is part of NATO. And in spite of the fact that we're in NATO, too, if any country attacks a NATO country, then all the NATO nations go there to support the country that's being attacked. And we're talking about 30 countries, some sizable countries like Poland, like like Germany. Yeah, Donald Trump's not going to do any of those things. Nobody's going to allow him to do it. Chris P. Bacon says, snow in Georgia, God put it there, God will take it away. That's true. Marie Panier says, do you think we will survive? Of course I think we'll survive. I've said this many times before. If you're old enough, you might remember the 60s. I was very young at the time, but I will tell you this about the 60s. It may have been even more turbulent than what we have going on here. If you remember, we had the Vietnam War. We had 4 major assassinations, Malcolm X, MLK, RFK, and JFK, all in 1 decade, or close to a decade. That was all going on. We had protests, we had riots, we had civil rights, women's rights, gay rights. We had a lot of shit going on, and it was just a mess. I didn't realize how bad it was when I was that age. I was 8, 9, 10 years old in the late 60s. As far as I knew, that's how it always was. That just seemed like every day. And then the 70s came along. I got into high school, started drinking beer, and everything cooled down. We will survive. There's no question we will survive, but it's not going to be easy. Is Ruben Gallego a good candidate for president in 2028? I think Ruben's a good guy. He was a good member of the House. He's now a senator. We should probably see how he does as senator. But I'm going to say something that people won't like. I don't like it. But in this last election, we found out something about this country, that this country at least has half the people in the country that are racist and sexist. Knowing that, and knowing how important it would be to win the next election, I think a brown guy might have a problem based on the number of racists in this country. Do I think he'd be a good president? I think he'd be as good a president as anybody. I don't know that he would be the top choice for a candidate. I'm sure he could do it. I'm just not sure that this country is mature enough and inclusive enough to vote for a Hispanic president. Analytical Iowan says Chet might not be a good choice for president just because he's been kind of low key since being governor. A Senate candidate might work. Yeah, that's the one thing. If you're going to be a president, you've got to kind of be out there a little bit. That's why Gavin Newsom seems like a likely prospect right now. He's very high profile. He's got the look. He knows how to talk. He's going after Donald Trump. It has to be somebody that can capture people's imagination. This is the problem that Democrats have had all along. They don't have anybody making noise. They don't have anybody that stands out. I mean, they have the people to stand out. It's just a matter if the Democrats will allow them to do that. And that's one of the changes the Democrats have to make. Will thin skins be able to take disabled veterans' benefits? Well, Eric and I were just talking about this, and Eric and I agree that it's one thing to say I'm going to take veterans' benefits, but it's got to go through Congress. And anybody that votes to take away veterans' benefits is political suicide. So no, I don't think that will happen. Alberta Gold, regarding the John Wick security one would expect these types of folks would have, with the release of the J6ers, one might want to keep an eye out to see if they get brought into the fold. This is not a smart group of people. I mean, remember, they had everything going for them on January 6th, and they fucking failed. And so, yeah, I'm worried that they're out there. But Donald Trump did more damage to himself when he did that. Police officers around the country, Republicans around the country, they were a little dismayed at him doing that. So I don't think that's going to work in his benefit. Initially, he said he was going to release everybody but the violent criminals in J6. But then he released them all. And people are asking, why would he do that? Because Donald Trump's lazy. If he would have had to go through the list and pick out the violent ones and the non-violent ones, that'd be too much work. It's just easier for Donnie to fucking let them all go. JB Brault says, love the pod. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Frank Capolino says, so I guess Pete Hegseth quit drinking. Well, that's what he said he would do. Yeah, I'm drinking like a fiend right now, but if I get the job, I'll stop. He almost has to stop, because the problem is when you've got a defense secretary, you can get a call for some serious questions at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 1 a.m. He can't be drunk at any moment in his life because you never know when you're going to need to be thinking straight. Now, stone cold sober, I don't know that he can think straight, but yeah, he said he'd quit. But I bet you there's rumors coming out. Oh, we saw Pete Hegseth drunk again. He was falling over backwards at some meeting or out at some dance floor where he's trying to slip roofies into some girl's drink. Spacer 7567 says former Governor Inslee of Washington might also be a contender for 2028. I'm looking at the one ahead of it. This is a good one too. But yeah, he could be. There could be any number of people that might be good choices for candidates. But here's the thing. We need to start acting on it now. If they're going to pick some people, not just one, maybe 4 or 5, and start getting them out there, getting them talking, getting their profile a little higher. That's what the Democrats have to do. And I'm hoping against hope that that's what they do. Analytical Iowan says Pete Hegseth isn't a DEI hire, but a DUI hire. Yeah, that's exactly right. I can't pronounce the name, but he says, hello, brother. I am live in Mumbai. Well, hello to you. It's kind of interesting how many people from across the world were getting in this one live. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Eric also says on Chet Culver, the Republicans had to dig out that fossil Brandstad. Analytical Iowan says they only need majority if they use reconciliation. However, no new spending and everything must be budget related. Isn't that ironic about Donald Trump? He campaigned and the Republicans campaigned on cutting debt and cutting spending. Yet somehow he wants to raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. He added to the debt to the tune of $7 trillion in 4 years when he was in office. Joe Biden brought the debt down while he was in office. Expect Donald Trump to raise the debt while he's in office this time. It's funny. The Republicans will always talk about being fiscally responsible, but they're the ones that are spending like fucking drunken sailors. Sweet Pea says, can Trump take disabled veterans benefits? We talked about this a moment ago. No, he can't do anything. Congress needs to do that, and I doubt they will risk their careers on something like that. What about Jennifer Granholm or Gina Raimondo for president? Yeah, any of them could be possibilities. It depends on who the Democrats pick and start to showcase. That's really what they got to do. That's what they should have done with Kamala Harris the moment Joe Biden won, because when Joe Biden won, he said that he was going to be a transitional president and wasn't going to run again. And then he decided to run because Donald Trump was running. From the moment Joe Biden got in office, thinking that Joe Biden might not run again, they should have put her out in front and showcased her. But the Democrats didn't do that. My question has always been, why not? Why not look to the future and get yourself ready? Keg Biker, TJ the plumber's brother says hello. Hey, brother. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Here's a guy that said something who thinks people don't know what it means, but fuck you, you're gone. No pardon for Vindman. Yeah, that was a little surprising to me, but to be perfectly honest with you, Donald Trump could go after anybody he wants to. You give a bunch of people pardons, he'll just go further down the list and go after them. Thoughts on Tim Walz running for president in 2028? Well, I live in Minnesota. He is our governor, and I like Tim Walz a lot. I just don't know that he has the. I don't think he has the posture to do it. You know, I think he would be a great president. I honestly do. Thought Kamala Harris would be a wonderful president. Let's see what Tim does between now and 2028. He is currently the governor for the next couple of years. He could be the governor after that. I don't think there's any limits as to when he can run or how many times. So he would be as good as anybody else. He's smart, he's compassionate, he's decent, he's got some charisma, and he cares about people. That would be a change, wouldn't it? Having a president who cared about other people. I mean, Joe did too, but he was so old school. Um, and Tim's not that young. He's a little younger than I am. I think he's 4 years younger than I am. So in 2028, he'll be, what, 64 years old? Not crazy old. But I still think we need to see some young folks in there being part of it. Uh, Don O'Leary subscribed. Thank you, sir, from South Minneapolis. Way to go, Don. I'm a South Minneapolis boy myself. Interesting place to grow up. I don't know how old you are, but I grew up in the 60s and 70s in South Minneapolis. And I got to tell you, I'll tell you this. Back in the 70s, you could get away with a lot of shit. We never got much trouble, not because we didn't get into trouble, it's because we didn't get caught that often. But I was thankful when my kids were born that it was in the 90s and 2000s. Because had it been in the 70s, I would have gotten payback for all the worry I gave my mother. Let's see. Did you ever know Elvis Presley was a natural blonde? I don't know what that has to do with anything. I don't think it was blonde, it was brown. I'm kind of a big Elvis Presley freak. I know a lot about Elvis Presley. When I was born in 60, his heyday of the 50s was over, but I spent my youth watching the old Elvis movies on television. I thought he was cool as hell. Who didn't think he was cool as hell? He won every race, won every fight, got every chick. Who didn't want to be Elvis? I know he didn't have black hair. I know he dyed it. Lack Awesome says, or LAK Awesome says, hey man, what's up? God bless. God bless to you. TJ the Plumber says, Gavin Newsom showed he isn't a tough guy. And I think you're suggesting that he showed that Donald Trump wasn't a tough guy. And I'd have to agree with you. But we all knew he wasn't a tough guy. He's a pussy-ass bitch. Zounds Treetop, if there was nothing, they probably would have been released by now. Yeah, maybe. It'll be interesting to see if they're released, when they're released, and if it's redacted. Because if it's redacted, they can pull out a lot of stuff. They still say, well, there's still some people alive. Can't be many people alive. Certainly nobody directly involved. Jose says, what with Trump with black and gold ball caps? I also saw Enrique Tarrio in the press conference in Miami a couple of days ago. There he is, a flat-out criminal. People always say nobody was charged with insurrection. Well, he was charged with sedition, which is essentially the same as insurrection, just as bad as insurrection. And he's out running around thanks to Donald Trump. Mexico's Prez is going to name the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Joe Biden. RC says, let's get Mike's numbers up. Please give him a like. Yeah. You know what? As long as I've been on TikTok and YouTube and all the others, I always see people, oh, hit the likes. Oh, follow me. I never do that. I figure I do what I do, and if people like it, they'll press the like. If they want to follow me, they will follow me. That was always my strategy on TikTok. And hey, it's been 4 years, but I got over 400,000 followers. So it's all good. It's all good. My contention is you just do what you do. And if you do it well enough, people will follow and they will like. If you don't like me, that's cool too. I got family members that don't fucking like me. Joe Bott says 750,000 friends lost because of Trump. I don't know what you mean there. No one is changing all the maps. What a waste of money. Typical Trump. Well, it's not going to change the name. And in fact, if you look at the bill, it's not changing the whole Gulf of Mexico. That's what he sounds like he's saying, but he's just trying to say, rename everything around the shelf outlining Florida and Alabama, I think. That's what it is. It's not as big a deal as what he says it is, but even still, it's stupid. He's not going to accomplish it. And why in the hell are you worried about renaming the Gulf of Mexico when we've got eggs and gasoline and energy to bring down and inflation? Why don't you focus on the things you promised, dumb fuck? Spacer says good 28 candidates would be Andy Beshear, governor from Kentucky. Good one. Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania. Newsom from California. Inslee or Governor Josh Green of Hawaii. All of those would be very good choices. Patty Hearst, Charles, I don't even know what you mean by that. We get some goofballs out here. Now, everybody's debating about who should be the next presidential candidate. We can talk about this forever, but it's really up to the Democrats who they're going to choose and who they're going to raise up. There are a lot of choices. I would bet there may be a choice out there for the nomination in 2028. We don't even know yet. We haven't heard his or her name much. So we gotta just kind of wait to see. And we got a few things we got to worry about right now, meaning Donald Trump and some of the fucked up shit he's doing. Spartacus says, subscribe. Thanks for speaking truth to Trump. Born and raised in Minnesota myself. Thanks for representing Minnesota. Yeah, thank you. I was born and raised here. I lived in Arizona for a short time. We have a place down in Savannah, but this is always home. People say, why don't you just go down south all winter? Well, I got a granddaughter here that I will take every opportunity to see. I got a grandson coming, same thing for that. I can't go away for more than a week because who knows, I might have to watch those kids, and I will jump at the chance every time I get it. Jay Wallow says, the 60s, I can remember the National Guard helicopters flying over my grandpa's farm, headed to Detroit to attend the riots. Yeah, there were a lot of riots. There were riots in Minneapolis, race riots. There was a lot of crazy shit. I remember being a little kid sitting on my couch and I was crying. I've told this story a million times, but fuck it, I'm redundant as hell. And I was crying and I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. And my mom said, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? And I pointed at the TV, and what was going on was a very violent riot at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it was pretty messy and kids were getting hurt. She looked at me and I go, Mom, I don't want to go to college, because that's what I thought college was about. You go there, you get your head beat in, and who wants to go do that? So it was a very volatile time. It was very, very scary. Who do you think the Republicans will run in the next election? Well, if the Republicans do what I think they're going to do by screwing up the country, bad optics, fucking up the economy, whoever they pick will have to be a sacrificial lamb because they won't have a chance to win after the damage they do to this country. It could be virtually anybody. I think the safe bet when we're talking about Republicans is going to be a white man. It's not going to be a woman. It's not going to be a person of color. It's not going to be somebody who's gay. It's going to be a white man. So whoever that, for all we know, it's fucking Josh Hawley. Throw him up there, throw him to the wolves and let him get beat. Alberta Gold says, back in the old days, a lot fewer folks got knocked off due to these types of issues. Now millions die. Yeah, you're absolutely right. RC says, I think the Jan 6 folks will have issues finding jobs and will be arrested for other charges. Yeah, when you're so well publicized and you're a J6 insurrectionist, whether you got pardoned or not, you're going to have a little trouble getting jobs, being able to rent property, getting a date. I mean, who wants to date a J6er? Can you imagine a young woman bringing home her date? Yeah, this is Bob. He was at the January 6th insurrection. He was in jail for 4 or 5 years, and then Donald Trump pardoned him. Yeah, they're going to be hot prospects for a lot of things. The Democrats need someone who can win in 2028. Maybe Gavin Newsom or Cory Booker or Wes Moore or Chris Murphy or Andy Beshear or Josh Shapiro or Mark Cuban or Mark Kelly or Andy Kim or Josh Stein. See, all of those would be likely prospects. There would be some likely prospects there, but we just don't know who it is. But hopefully the Democrats have an idea, because we need them to get on the fucking stick here. Carpe diem. Man eats dead bear carcasses and brainworms for DHS, a wrestling promoter for the Department of Education, a drunk guy who's fired from the VA for the DOD. Talk about unqualified DEI replaced with nepotism. You're absolutely right. Part of it is Donald Trump is just handing out jobs to friends. But I think another part of it that's kind of important is that Donald Trump had some relatively normal people the first time around when he was president. Problem with them is they mostly got fired or quit or indicted and sanctioned and whatever else they could have done to them. I don't think any reasonable candidate wanted to serve under Donald Trump this time around. So he got who he could get, and they were a bunch of unqualified dumb fucks. I've heard a couple of J6ers that were pardoned were arrested again. That's true. At least one I know for sure that was rearrested for some gun charges. I also heard that there were some J6ers that refused being pardoned. They regret being tied to Donald Trump. They don't want to be connected to Donald Trump anymore. They said, we did what we did, we paid our price, and now we just want to forget about that shit. So oddly enough, with some of these J6ers, they're showing a little bit of integrity. Who fucking knew? Judy Pilch says, I finally found your live during the day in Australia. Judy, you just sent me an email the other day wanting me to let you know when I did a live. And I thought you were talking about TikTok, honestly. That's why I didn't email you. And I thought about doing this at the last minute. So I'm glad you found us and caught up with us. And I'm going to be doing more YouTube lives because I really enjoy being on YouTube, probably more so than TikTok. Michelle Nowak says, so since Hegseth was nominated, it sounds like a guarantee that the crazy RFK will be too. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of people think he's goofy, but then you get some Democrats that say, well, he doesn't have some bad ideas. Here's the thing. You got a bunch of people that don't know the jobs. When Donald Trump was president the first time around, he got very little accomplished because he didn't know how to work the system. I mean, the government's a big fucking machine. You got to know how to run it properly. That's why Donald Trump got very little done. And now he's sitting there in the office, still doesn't know anything, doesn't like putting any work in, and all the people around him can't give him any help because they don't know what they're doing either. This is why Joe Biden, in spite of the tight Congress, was able to get things accomplished. He'd been in Washington, D.C. for 50 years. He knew how the system worked, and he knew how to work the system. That's the big difference between, well, one of many big differences between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Republicans haven't been fiscally responsible since Reagan. I'd have to agree with you there, Eric. Frank says, I think Sheldon Whitehouse should be the Senate Majority Leader in the next Congress. Absolutely. I think Sheldon Whitehouse is brilliant. He's got guts. He says what he means and means what he says. He isn't afraid of going after the Republicans. Sheldon Whitehouse would be a solid Senate Majority Leader. I need a Reagan ruined everything shirt. Yeah, I have to agree with you. That would be a good shirt. It would be accurate anyway. Mike 6, same thought process from the boomers, different day. Thanks, Dad. Okay. Your thoughts on solar power, sir? I don't know a lot about solar power. I understand the premise of solar power. I think anytime we can get some clean energy and that we can use less fossil fuels, it's a good idea. I know people who have solar power on their houses. I know it works, so I guess I'm in favor of it. Let's see here. Mike 6, then why are you here? Yeah, that's a good point. As I've said before, we get Trump fucks in here from time to time, and they want to argue. And what's the point? I'd like a Trump fuck to tell me that. Why are you here, and why do you want to argue? You won. You got what you wanted. Now go do something with it. My contention is you don't know how to govern. The only thing you know how to do is fight. You're not capable of building your own platform where anybody will listen to you, so you come to places like mine or other creators where there are actually people who show up and listen, and you think you can spew your stupid bullshit. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. People recognize you for who you are. The vast majority of the people in this room right now where we're doing this live think you're a dumbass. So if you want to come out here and continually prove it, go ahead. Up until the time TJ or Eric finds you, and then they're going to block your ass. What do you think about Pete Buttigieg for president in 2028? Well, I think Pete's a smart guy. I think he's still young. He needs more seasoning. I think he could be a presidential candidate. I think after what happened on November 5th of 2024 with a black woman not winning, not being able to beat the worst candidate in the history of this country, I think it's important that we do what we have to do to win the next election. Everything we have to do to win the next election. And frankly, while Pete might be qualified, maybe even more qualified by the time 2028 comes around, he is a gay man. I have no problem with that. I think he would be a great president. However, it looks like 49% of this country are racist, sexist, want to marginalize the LGBT community. I think the next election is so serious, we got to take away any negatives and do what we can to win. Once we win that election, then we can start inputting some of these people of color, sexual orientation differences, and the like. It's a matter of trying to be safe. Lane says, I love and appreciate your content, Mike. Thank you very much. Frank says, I think somebody new nobody knows about can run for the Democratic nomination for president in 2028. Yeah, that's distinctly possible. You remember back when George H.W. Bush was president. At one point, he had the highest approval rating of any president in history. So there were really no strong Democrats or Republicans that won. Well, no, Democrats. How am I? Now I'm confusing myself. Anyway, no Democrats wanted to run against George W. Bush because it was going to be an almost sure loss. And these people don't want to run for president and lose because often it precludes them from doing it again. So because of that, out of nowhere came Bill Clinton, governor for Arkansas, this little state in the southwestern part of the country. Nobody knew who Bill Clinton was. He happened to be pretty articulate, fairly charismatic, and he jumped up and says, I'll run for president. Nobody gave him a reasonable chance of beating George H.W. Bush until the economy took a shit. The economy took a shit, and then everybody was mad at George H.W. Bush. And rising up from the ashes, Bill Clinton. Somebody out of nowhere. He wins the presidency. He gets reelected for a second term. So that kind of thing could certainly happen. Let's see. Do you think the bird flu will become a pandemic? No, I don't think so. But, fuck. If you would have asked me about COVID, I would have said the same thing. When it first started, I thought, well, this will go for about a month and we'll be done with it. I don't know that the bird flu will become a pandemic. It's only amongst animals for the most part. I think one or two people maybe have gotten it. Hopefully we'll be able to isolate it. My only problem with it is that Donald Trump is now in charge, and he isn't interested in science or anything along those lines, so almost anything can happen. Donald Trump will always use COVID as an excuse as to why the economy went to the shit at the end of his term. Now, it was COVID's fault, but here's the problem. COVID, if it had been handled properly or been handled at all by a president who knew anything at all, COVID would never have gotten as bad as it was. Donald Trump threw out the instruction book and fired the committee to deal with pandemics, and then tried to tell us that it was no big deal, that it would go away in the spring. So when it comes down to the economy and the shutdowns and things, they want to blame Dr. Fauci or whoever else. But the reason we had as many shutdowns for as long as we had, and the reason the economy died, is because Donald Trump fucked up the COVID crisis, and it all lays solidly on his shoulder. Let's see here. Trump trying to get big symbolic wins instead of winning with real day-to-day shit. Well, that's always how Donald Trump has been. It's always about image. It's always about performance. He doesn't care about what actually happens other than saving his ass or putting money in his pocket. And that's an interesting thing. I heard somebody talking about this the other day. You know how Donald Trump got it so that presidents can have immunity for any official acts, okay? Somebody pointed out that in that immunity, there are some things that are excluded from that immunity. And one of those is taking bribes, taking money illegally. In those occasions, there is no immunity. So you think Donald Trump has done that yet? He's been in office less than a week. I guarantee you he has. So in spite of the fact that he thinks he has immunity, he doesn't have immunity from everything. Truth Seeker, good evening, Mike and everyone. Hey, Truth Seeker, good to see you. JV says, congratulations, Boomer. Congratulations for what? Did something happen? Debbie says, at Eric, at Boomer, old is in the chat, but her comments aren't showing. She told me to tell you, hey, old soul, if you listen to the Rational Boomer podcast, you know old soul. Wonderful woman, angel on earth, true activist. And next time she's on, hopefully this week, the end of the week, you'll want to listen to it. And old soul hit me up with a couple of things earlier today. There was a rumor going around that Donald Trump was going to cancel Black History Month and Martin Luther King's holiday. And then there was some talk of the Air Force no longer teaching history regarding the Tuskegee Institute and some other things along those lines. Now, in terms of canceling Black History Month, I found no validation of that. Sometimes you get the right side talking about some conspiracy shit, and sometimes you get the far left talking about it. I'm not saying I'm putting it beyond Donald Trump's realm of possibility, but I haven't verified that. I have verified, though, that through what Old Soul told me and some other people I've checked, that because Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump no longer wants the military woke, that when they're teaching the Air Force recruits, they're told not to talk about the Tuskegee fighter pilots, which is pretty fucked up and not surprising. Spacer says, if J.D. Vance takes over as president, I can see him pull a Bush and give people stimulus checks to make himself seem more likable. You have to have a reason for those stimulus checks. And if that reason was the economy was going to shit, as vice president, he would have to take some of the heat for that. I don't know. The Republicans don't like handing out free money. They're the ones bitching about it all the time. I do think we need to get Donald Trump out of there. I think the Republicans believe that. I think J.D. Vance would be president, and he's not a lot better than Donald Trump, except for the fact he is controllable. And I'm not talking about by us. Donald Trump is a fucking wild card. Nobody knows what he's going to do or what he's going to say, and that's including the Republicans. For the Republicans' sake, if J.D. Vance is the president at some point, they'll be able to control him. And clearly we found that J.D. Vance is easily controlled. He'll do whatever he's told. One minute he says Donald Trump is a racist. Next minute, I was wrong. He's the greatest guy ever. J.D. Vance is a sycophant and he's weak as shit. So we'll see what happens with that. Dark ZQ says things will sadly have to get bad for enough people to notice and give a damn. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of too. I've often said that people don't react to things unless something bites them in the ass. and there's going to be a lot of people get bitten in the ass. There's already Republicans and Trump-la-fucks that are saying, the fuck's happening? This isn't supposed to happen to me. It's supposed to be the libtards. But I don't think Donald Trump will be able to do as many things as he thought he could, or a lot of things that people think he can. But there'll be enough things that are bad, and there will be people who will struggle with it. And it will change the attitude about Donald Trump, and it will change their attitudes about voting in 2028 as opposed to sitting at home on their asses. But Jesus Christ, how bad does it have to get before people take notice? Stacy says, did you follow up on what you heard? I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but I'm old. We've been doing this an hour, so got me some slap. Keg Biker says, Diaper Donnie didn't bother to visit Black working class Altadena. Go figure, in the community west of Lake Avenue didn't receive fire evac alerts until almost 9 hours after the Eden fire began. Yeah, everything about that in Los Angeles was a tragedy and some fuck-ups as well. The idea that Donald Trump didn't go to the poorer side of town does not surprise me. I think part of the reason he did go to Los Angeles, because as much as it's a blue state, there are a lot of very wealthy entertainers and businessmen that are Trump-la-fuck supporters. And this is why I think he'll find a way to get money to California. There's a lot of money there that would be left on the table if he fucked them over. Let's see, going on. Frank says, I hope people are tired of Trump's shit show and any maggot Republican loses Josh Hawley or J.D. Vance or Bernie Moreno or Tim Sheehy or Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or Mark Wayne Mullen or Rick Scott. Yeah, all those suck. And they would be a disaster if they held the presidency. Giasone, glad to see you on YouTube. I left TikTok a long time ago, and yes, Trump is a moron. Yep, you're absolutely right. I'm still on TikTok. I'm going to be there as long as I can, only because I have a lot of followers there, and I feel that I have a responsibility to them to be there as they expect me to be. Debbie says, did you see the video of the Latino woman crying? She's scared ICE is coming for her parents. She voted for Trump. Yeah, I wish I could have sympathy for these people. They were told they could see what they could see, but they only believed what they wanted to believe. Donald Trump talked so much shit about the Democrats. These Republicans, these Trump-la-fucks believed that Donald Trump was just going to go after Democrats. What they didn't understand is if they're having these deportations, they aren't asking what party you're from. They're just looking at what color your skin is. They're taking your skin, and that's the deciding factor. And they're not being very discriminating about it either. We had the story out in New Jersey about how ICE went into New Jersey and was going to pick up 500 illegal immigrants. But amongst that group was a man who was a legal citizen and a veteran of the military. They scooped him up, put him in jail. And then when he showed papers to prove he was a veteran and a citizen of the country, they scoffed at it. That can't be real. Think about that. If the government can pick you up for any reason, whether it be the color of your skin, the religion you practice, or the videos you watch on YouTube, that's not how America's supposed to be. That's sad. That's horrible. The other thing I was going to tell you too, did you hear about the ICE teams in Arizona? And they're picking up illegal immigrants there too, but they're also picking up members of the Navajo Nation, illegal immigrants, and you're picking up Native Americans. Native Americans couldn't be the furthest opposite of illegal immigrants. And these dumb fucks only care that they have brown skin. This is going to get them in trouble. When you deal with the Navajo Nation or the Native Americans generally across the country, they'll probably come together and fight against this. This could get very ugly for Donald Trump in terms of lawsuits or God knows what. My biggest fear about Donald Trump winning the presidency and doing the things he's doing, I'm concerned about violence on the left side. And the only reason I'm concerned about it is because there are a lot of people that are terrified and they are desperate and they think their futures are gone and that their kids and grandkids will suffer. Most people are reasonable, but there are some lone goofballs out there that might do some things. And I'm hoping against hope they don't. But this is getting pretty bad out there and people are getting pretty scared. Obi-Mom Kenobi says, hello, Mike. I appreciate the short video about Hegseth. It actually is a small comfort to hear that he will just fuck up and get fired anyway. Yeah, he probably will. I mean, it doesn't take much of a fuck up to cause some serious problems when you're overseeing the Department of Defense. When he does a fuck up, Donald Trump doesn't care if he's buddies with him or not. He doesn't want to look stupid, and that motherfucker will be gone. Debbie says, at Leslie F., I'm a compassionate person, but I couldn't feel bad for her. Did you feel bad? Yeah, that's the thing. I don't feel bad for them. I mean, I think I've said before, once we've gotten this deep into it, we've tried to stop them at every turn and weren't successful. All you can really do sometimes is just step back and let them burn themselves down. The unfortunate thing is that they'll take down some innocent people with them, and that is unfortunate. That makes me sad. But what's the option? You can hope against hope that the dumb fucks get burnt down, and then they stand around with their mouth agape and not knowing what the fuck happened to them. Frank says, and Ross Perot took points away from George Bush in 92. Yeah, Ross Perot was a third-party candidate, and he actually got some votes, so he did impact George H.W. Bush. C. Robin said, let's be honest, we or I personally would love to see Joe Biden run again. I'm sure he can address his health issues and come back refreshed and focused on 2028. Yeah, now you're trying to be cute, C. Robbins. Joe Biden's not going to run in 2028, nor would he be in a condition to do it. And I'm a fan of Joe Biden. I don't know if you're serious there or you're trying to fuck with me, but keep an eye on that one, TJ, because I'm not sure about him. Trust Miss T. He won't allow the CDC to post anything without his approval. That's interesting. The CDC needs to post recalls and stuff like that and problems with healthcare. Donald Trump has pretty much shut that down. And then in addition to that, Marco Rubio is shut down any foreign help, financial help, except for Israel and Egypt. Isn't that interesting? I think that's one way they're trying to shut down Ukraine without saying shut down Ukraine. What else we got here? I'll say it now. I think Biden can address his health issues with, okay, we already read that one. I'm not sure about you. RC says, I'm active duty Air Force. They have taken the Tuskegee Airmen out of the basic training. And yes, the DEI officers were forced to close immediately. Thanks for that verification. Trump until March or April, but I don't know if any Democrats will do anything about interference if there was any in Pennsylvania or other swing states from Russia and Putin and Elon Musk. Well, I tell you this, Elon's wearing out his welcome. And one of the reasons I know that, Donald Trump's chief of staff was supposed to get him an office in the White House, right near Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's chief of staff, who's actually a relatively sharp woman, said, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. You get an office across the street at the Eisenhower building. This probably isn't going to go over very well with the egomaniac Elon Musk. So I think we're on borrowed time as far as that little bromance between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Elon wants too much attention, and Donald Trump fucking hates that. My biggest concern is Trump with his relationship with Russia. I'm concerned that this man will do something to sell out America because Trump is for Trump. Well, I think we might be too late for that. I think he already sold out America to Russia. I think this is going to be a little different. Donald Trump can fuck up anything. There's no question about it. Vladimir Putin is also a psychopath, narcissist piece of shit. And I think Donald Trump is already getting caught up in his own press clippings because he told Vladimir Putin, you better shut that war down or we'll put tariffs on it. I don't know that Donald Trump knows that we put all kinds of sanctions on them and they are pretty much economically crippled. I don't know what more he can expect to do. But Donald Trump's talking tough, and he's talking a little tougher than he normally would at Vladimir Putin. And I don't think Vladimir Putin is going to accept that very well. So who knows? Maybe we'll see that very famous or infamous P tape. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, we might see some things coming out about Donald Trump that we wouldn't have seen in the first term. Cheryl Stevens says, yes, it was a great watch. Love that little kiss on the cheek. Yeah. And they are picking up Native Americans. Yes, as I understand it, they have. Do you think they can get him impeached? I don't think the Democrats can, but I think the Russians, that's a Freudian slip. I think the Republicans certainly can. And they might very well be the first one in line to impeach him. I don't know that the Democrats will even bother with it because if the Democrats ran an impeachment, they couldn't win it anyway because they have the minority. All right, moving on. We'll go a little longer here. It is very weird that Bob Casey lost by less than 1% in Pennsylvania. How does Bob Casey lose to a billionaire carpetbagger who lives in Connecticut and Bob Casey's father was a two-term governor? That's an excellent point. And people bring up a lot of things that are questionable in this past election. And I don't doubt there was some funny business involved. But like I say, who's going to do anything about it? Apparently not the Democrats, apparently not the DOJ with Merrick Garland. So what's that old saying from the 70s? It's not illegal if you don't get caught. In this case, it's not illegal unless you get indicted. And nobody's indicting anybody in this shit. Somebody said, I saw a video of Latinos crying. Now, I don't wish ill of Latinos in general. But those Latinos for Donald Trump should have looked into what they were doing more than what happened. I don't even know how many of those people there are, if there's a big percentage. Let's be honest, when it comes to people who voted for Donald Trump, the true culprits are white women and white men. We're the ones that helped Donald Trump get elected. And probably a lot of white people and that didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Those are the people that should be held responsible for Donald Trump winning. Hold on one second. I got to pick up a pen. All right, back. Let's see what else we got here. Can I just say that TJ and Eric are doing a hell of a job with the Trumpaflux. Here we are still going. And I see so many of these people being blown out of here, which is absolutely necessary. I couldn't do these lives, whether they be on TikTok or YouTube, without the help of the likes of Rebecca and TJ, great captain over on TikTok, and of course, Eric. When I first started doing lives on TikTok, I didn't have a moderator because I didn't know any better. And these Trumplefucks, if you get enough in your lives, they can take things over. Then people get mad and they start arguing in the comments. It's just not worth it. Debbie says they are shutting down communications for death caused by Roe being overturned. You might be onto something there, Debbie. You wonder why they're shutting down the communications, and maybe they just don't want to answer to all those women who are dying because of these dystopian laws. Susie Wiles moved Elon's ass out. Susie Wiles is the chief of staff for Donald Trump, and as I was saying, moved him across the street at the Eisenhower building. Um, Out of the entire staff, it took a woman to stand up to Musk and kick his ass to the curb. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Old white men suck. And I can say that because I'm an old white man. There's a lot of old white men that I don't like. Trust Miss T. Garland is a waste of whatever. Yeah, he is a waste. I don't know what's going to become of him, but his legacy will fucking suck. Jackie Lovell says, I'm a white woman who voted for Kamala. Well, a lot of white women, a lot of white men voted for Kamala. But a lot of we white people voted for Donald Trump, and I cannot explain that. It's impossible for me to understand how anybody who has seen what we've seen, heard what we've heard, and gone through what we've gone through can still vote for Donald Trump. It makes absolutely no logical sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think this term might be a little different than first term because of Susie Wiles. You might be right. She's kind of a stickler for the rules. I mean, she's a Trump humper, I know, but she's trying to get a job. But I think it's important to her to not look like fucking fools. So she might be able to put a hold on Donald Trump and keep him from doing some goofy shit. AC said, greetings, Unc. Do you think Trump will declassify the JFK and MLK files? He said he was. I presume he will. I don't know what will come out of it, what we'll see, but I know what he won't be doing, AC. He won't be releasing the files for the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Isn't that interesting? Nathan Bandy says he already did declassify them. Yes, you're right. He did declassify them. I think that it's just a matter of what process there is. It takes a little doing to get everything put together and gone over and then release it. So he did declassify it. We'll see if there's anything that happens to stop it. But if it doesn't, I presume he will release them. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. Beverly Campbell says, hi, Boomer. My daughter could not access the Constitution on the government site the day of the inauguration. Yeah, I heard that. On the government website, they always had the Constitution that you could take look at, and somehow, some way, it wasn't there anymore. I mean, Donald Trump has said as much that he wanted to terminate the Constitution, so I guess it isn't that surprising that he took it off because he doesn't think it's that important, in spite of the fact that he took an oath that he said he would protect. He would protect the Constitution. Debbie says they're going to prove Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK. Yeah, I doubt that. They may find out Ted Cruz's biological dad was grandpa on the Munsters because he looks just like the motherfucker. Ted is a joke, and how he won his election is unbelievable to me. Absolutely unbelievable. Okay, prophet of truth, telling nothing but lies, and you're gone, motherfucker. They get rid of the White House sign language interpreters. Any idea why they did that? Well, Donald Trump doesn't like to leave a paper trail. Remember, he doesn't have email, he doesn't text, and he doesn't want any of this stuff coming back to haunt him. So the less we know, the better in his mindset. See, that's the thing is Donald Trump always talks about full transparency. I want full transparency. Well, how come we can't see your taxes? How come we can't see your school records? How come we can't see investigations against you? Donald Trump does not like full transparency. Just the opposite. That's what Donald Trump wants. He wants to make sure we don't know any more than we have to because there's a lot of fucked up shit to know about Donald Trump. All right, we're coming to the end here. I'm going to wrap things up on this live on YouTube. I want to thank you all for joining me. Thanks to TJ, Eric, and Rebecca for helping to moderate this live. It's much appreciated. Again, I want to encourage you to check out the Rational Boomer podcast. It's done every night. I post it about 12:15 every night. The audio version is on Spotify. The video version is on YouTube. And tomorrow's podcast will be this live. So you'll be able to watch the live in its entirety. And we'll keep moving. I also did an extra one. It was from the Substack live. So that's already out there. You can listen to that. We talked about some similar things. But again, I want to thank you all for joining me here. If not for you, this would be goddamn boring. So I appreciate you all taking the time to come on, make comments, ask questions, and that sort of thing. You are the people that make this type of thing entertaining, if it is entertaining at all, and informative. So thank you all very much.